fucking hate when you lie. And everybody faking while they acting like they
Here's Gain the Lead with your host, Tyler Renicker.
Yo, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to those of you joining us live. Welcome, Gain the Lead, episode 5. Happy to have you along. It has been a little bit of a layoff since we last heard from Gain the Lead. Obviously, Christmas, New Year's, holidays gets a little busy for everybody, so took a couple weeks off and had a couple weeks off work. Had a couple weeks to just kind of gather some thoughts, lick my wounds from NFL Week 16. It was so bad that I decided just to take Week 17 off because what was even the point? So you're welcome. We'll visit at Week 18 a little bit. It's going to be pretty lame. Half the games really don't even matter. Oh well, I guess. But there are some games that matter this weekend, have some playoff implications. I do think it'll still be worth your time to watch football this weekend. But there are some games that are literally meaningless. So we'll see how those go. Playoff football is the best football. The week before playoff football, I mean, the NFL has probably the least problem with tanking out of any of the professional sports leagues. It's pretty tough to tank in football. You really can't take any plays off or you'll get killed. Maybe literally. If not, just very, very seriously injured. So the NFL, I think, has the least problem out of any league with taking plays off and taking games off and just trying to, tank, so to speak. But Week 18 does tend to lead to some duds. Teams are locked into their playoff spots, their seeding. It's pretty much decided. and that means backups are playing. That means backups are playing, and the only thing that really is up in the air is seeding. So, if you're a playoff team, you're looking to get the best seed that you possibly can. You want a home game if you're still in the hunt for a division, and obviously if you are a wild card team, you're looking to play the weakest division winner. So those games matter a little bit for those teams, but you've also got some games that are important for draft position come April. NFL draft. That is one thing that I do like about the NFL is the NFL draft is the inverse order of the standings at the end of the season. There is no lottery like you have in the NBA, and I think, I mean, in the NBA, I guess that's their effort to stop tanking from happening, because in the NBA you can throw games, and if you throw enough games, you would get the number one pick, which they're trying to prevent by having the draft lottery. So if you're unfamiliar, every team gets a certain number of lottery balls in the lottery machine. The worst team has the most lottery balls, so therefore the highest chance at the number one pick. Second team has the second most, and so on. But it does happen quite often, more often than not, in fact, that the worst team in the NBA does not often get the number one draft pick. So it de-incentivizes tanking, losing games on purpose to better your draft pick. Now in the NFL, I did mention already that tanking is a little bit more difficult to do in the NFL. One, these guys are playing for their jobs. They want good film out there to be able to show a prospective suitor next season or in the off season, looking for their services. They don't want to see you taking plays off as a player. They don't want to see you missing tackles. They don't want to see you not pursuing the play. They don't want to see you, if you're a wideout, they want to see you blocking when you're not receiving the ball. Those kinds of things. And in the NFL, you've got dudes that are moving at full speed who are one step below machines. I mean, these guys are unbelievable athletes. And if you take a play off in the NFL, you're liable to get legitimately injured. There is no running out there and half-assing it. So the NFL, like I said, I think has the least problem with tanking, which is good, but it does lead to some games, some duds of games in Week 18. We'll go through those a little bit, but I do want to start in college football because we did have a pretty good second weekend of college football as it pertains to the playoffs. Better games than the first round, and spoiler alert, we'll go through them, but you've ended up with the last four teams of the college football playoff are seeds 5 through 8. So those are the teams that did not get any buys. All the teams with buys lost, and you've now got teams that played both weekends, but the highest seeded team that played on those weekends. So obviously small sample size. This is the first year of the 12-team college football playoff, and we're not going to draw any conclusions from 1 year of this. I don't think you can say it's an abject failure or a success yet. But I will say that the bye obviously did not help Oregon, especially. Oregon looked terrible this weekend. They absolutely got their doors blown off, and I'm not sure how Dan Lanning was preparing them. I'm not sure if they thought, hey, we beat Ohio State earlier in the season, this will not be that difficult of a game, or I don't know if maybe they were assuming that Ohio State had some injured offensive linemen, so they were going to be able to pursue Will Howard and get to the quarterback, and that was going to make them one-dimensional. All those things could be seen as potential thoughts in Oregon's mind as they went into this game, but Ohio State just came in and absolutely, took control of the game early. But before the TV broadcast even switched from Texas and Arizona State. Before you could even watch it, Ohio State's up 7-0 with a long pass to Jeremiah Smith, who is a phenomenal freshman receiver. He will be insanely good. And in college, you have to be there at least 3 years. So he's got 2 more years in college, presumably at Ohio State. But he made Oregon look silly. Put up video game numbers, averaged like 26 yards a catch, 7 catches, like 180 some odd yards, and 2 touchdowns. Was getting behind the Oregon Ducks secondary all day. That game ended up, 41-15, I think, was the final. 41, maybe 22. 41-21. It was a blowout. It wasn't even that close. So far the bye has not been worth it, Edgar. We can obviously say that all 4 teams with the bye lost. Now, if you put all the best teams in there with the byes, it may make a difference. I think the teams with the byes this season, in the first season of the playoff, did not end up being the best 4 teams in college football. It was given to the top 4 conference winners. So you had Boise State in there, who won the Mountain West. And I'm not saying these teams are bad teams, don't get me wrong, but Boise State had a bye as the 3 seed, and Arizona State had a bye as the 4 seed. Now, I will say Arizona State did surprise me in staying in that game with Texas. Early in that game, when it was 17-3 at halftime, or it was 14-0 before you could blink an eye. But early on, it looked like Arizona State was in not even the right league, not even in the right division, not even in they're an FBS team, FCS team. They looked like. Now they got their legs underneath them, and I want to shout out Cam Scatabo. That dude is an animal. That guy improved draft stock. That guy legitimized his whole season against Texas this weekend. I think it was pretty incredible what he did. He was shut out. I shouldn't say shut out, but shut down most of the first half. And the second half, he just opened it up. He threw a touchdown pass. He rushed for, I think, 140 some odd yards. He had 99 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns rushing, and I think 1 throwing. Dude was just kind of their Swiss Army knife. Think like Taysom Hill in New Orleans in the NFL. That's kind of what he reminded me of this weekend. A little more burly, a little more rough around the edges, I guess you could call it. But he looked great, and Arizona State's quarterback looked really good. Of course, his name is gonna escape me as I'm sitting here talking, but Arizona State came back and made that a hell of a game. And when you go back and look at, who deserves to be there, because that's been the argument since this bracket came out, is who deserves to be in the playoff, who doesn't deserve to be in the playoff, and why. And everybody's arguing these SEC teams were just snubbed beyond belief, and Alabama should have been in, Ole Miss should have been in, and you shouldn't have had teams in like Indiana. Well, it turns out that the SEC got absolutely embarrassed in this playoff. Tennessee got blown out by Ohio State. Georgia, in their first game, did not look great against Notre Dame. They lost to Notre Dame by more than Indiana did. And Alabama, meanwhile, who's on the outside looking in, lost to Michigan in their bowl game as 16.5-point favorites. Lost outright. So the SEC was kind of embarrassed in the bowl games and in the playoff. And anyway, back to what I was talking about. I do want to get back to Arizona State, Texas a little bit. But that was a great game, and unfortunately, I think it was a little bit soured by a couple missed calls in the game, especially late. That call, the targeting review that absolutely, in every sense of the word and every definition, was targeting. Guy led with the helmet to helmet contact, defenseless receiver. I mean, everything you look for in a textbook targeting call. I mean, you would put that on film for training officials and say, this is what targeting is. They didn't call it live, so most people watching the game thought, yeah, they missed it, sucks. They ended up stopping the game, and the review replay booth, whatever you want to call it, signals in, we need to stop the game and look at this for targeting. And so at that point, you're thinking, oh, great, they've determined this is obviously a targeting foul. They've buzzed the officials. We need to stop the game and we need to get this call right. Yep. And turns out, no, the officials determined it was not targeting. I could probably even bring up the play. But just a bummer to watch Arizona State, fight all the way back and not end up victorious. I do think they played a really, really good second half of football. Unfortunately, the first half of football was not good enough to keep them close, and you hate to see it, but they absolutely belonged in that game. I do want to say that it was not something I was anticipating. I did think Texas was going to, really, really have their way. So, yeah, pretty cool game for them. But yeah, here, let me see if I can pull this up for those of you that want to watch this. This is a little bit of a graphic.
Oh, they get after Levitt. Levitt, big hit. Coming in was Michael Taff meeting Stovall. Oh, they get after Levitt. Levitt, big hit. Coming in was Michael Taff meeting Stovall. Oh, they get after Levitt. Levitt, big hit. Coming in was Michael Taff meeting Stovall. Oh, they get after Levitt. Levitt, big hit. Coming in was Michael Taff.
Or, to continue down the field and try to win the game. So, that stinks. I hate that for Arizona State, for Arizona State fans. But Kenny Dillingham is a great coach. I think he'll be at Arizona State, his alma mater, for quite some time. And I think good things are coming there for the Sun Devils. Let's go back and revisit the Boise State and Penn State game. I will say I was wrong on this one. Penn State has looked every bit as dominant as people thought they would be. I'm not saying that everybody thought Penn State's some powerhouse, but so far they've played SMU and Boise State, and they've looked like they have not had really any issues. So, Penn State has looked competent, very good at in the position that they're in. I think Notre Dame will be a pretty stiff challenge for Penn State, but in the Penn State Boise State game, it really was never in question. From early on in that game, Penn State looked like they were able to just run it down Boise State's throats. Looked like Penn State's a Big Ten team and Boise State's a Mountain West team. I don't mean any disrespect to the Mountain West. I just mean the Big Ten Conference is a Power 2 conference, and there's bigger dudes, and there's more talent. And I think it just showed. Ashton Jeanty, who is, for those of you who do not follow college football closely, Ashton Jeanty had a historical season at running back this season, averaged like 8 yards a carry, had, I think, close to 40 touchdowns, was second in the Heisman voting. And a lot of people were saying that this is the guy who should have won the Heisman Trophy over Travis Hunter. I'm split pretty much down the middle on that one. Travis Hunter is a generational type guy, once in a blue moon that you see a guy that plays 150 snaps a game. I understand cardio king. I understand all that stuff. Jeanty is in the Mountain West Conference. Jeanty did not play the quality of opponent that everybody else in the Heisman Trophy running did. Is that his fault? No, it's not. But you have to take that into consideration. And it turns out you put the guy against a Penn State defensive front, and he turns into a pretty normal to maybe slightly above average running back. Grant, I'm with you. I'm also taking Ohio State and Penn State money line in both these games. Ohio State has looked insanely dominant. If we move to that Ohio State-Oregon game, I mean, that was over in the first 10 minutes of the game. Before the first quarter was over, that game was in hand, which sucks. I mean, which sucks for us because that was, that's the game that on New Year's Day, everybody has off of work and everybody's anticipating the Rose Bowl and looking forward to a really good football game between two teams that played it really close the first time. And Big Ten and who's going to be there. I mean, it was just a dud. Like, unless you're an Ohio State fan, in which case it was the greatest game you've ever seen. But overall, not a great game to watch for the neutral fan. Oregon looked completely unprepared, which, I guess shows a lot to Oregon and what they need to do to match up in the Big Ten going forward. Oregon had a pretty easy Big Ten schedule their first year in the Big Ten. I mean, they did play Ohio State, but they got them at home. They did not play Penn State until the championship game. Say what you will about Indiana, but they didn't have to play Indiana. And, they went undefeated. Kudos to them. They beat everybody on their schedule, which, obviously that deserves a 1 seed. But when time came out for them to come on the field in Pasadena, they forgot to come out on the field. I mean, I don't know if they left their, I don't know if they just put a high school team in their jerseys. I mean, it was embarrassing. So Ohio State made it look just super easy. I have not been impressed all season with Will Howard, and in this game he shocked me. I was under the impression that he would not be able to really get the ball to the receivers. You can have a Jeremiah Smith and you can have an Emeka Egbuka and you can have a great running back duo, but if your quarterback can't feed your wide receivers the ball, then what do you do? And you saw that against Michigan. That's what Ohio State's problem was, is they couldn't move the ball down the field. They became one-dimensional, and Michigan was able to stop the run. And Will Howard looked, I mean, I don't know even how to describe. He looked average, very pedestrian. And when Ohio State is looking for a transfer quarterback, Will Howard is not who I'm thinking, of being elite and being able to lead Ohio State to a national championship. Now, I guess I sit here corrected today because Will Howard looked insanely good against Oregon on Wednesday. So, not sure what Will Howard shows up against Texas. Texas, I think, is a good football team. I don't know that they're great. They also had a very easy SEC schedule this season. The only real tough team that they had to play this season during the season was Georgia. They played them during their season and they lost, and they played them during the SEC championship game and lost again. So I don't know how they'll stack up against Ohio State, but I will say Ohio State does look like a team with a chip on their shoulder, destiny, whatever you want to call it. The final game that actually got postponed to Thursday was the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, and that was Notre Dame and Georgia. That game was postponed for let's just call it what it is, a terrorist attack in New Orleans. Some psycho decided to rent an F-150 and just mow down a bunch of people on Bourbon Street. So I'm not going to really get into the policies and things that have led to that. You can make your own assumptions there. But the All-State Sugar Bowl did what was right in postponing that game, simply for security reasons. They obviously lost a lot of police officers that day over to Bourbon Street to handle that issue. Security would have been week at best in the Sugar Bowl at the Superdome, and they did the right thing in postponing it by about 18 hours and making sure sweeping that building and making sure that was safe for not only the players and the teams but the fans. So good job, college football. I think you did the right thing there. Once the game got going, Georgia was working with a backup quarterback. I mentioned in the last episode before Christmas that Carson Beck was out with injury, I believe an elbow, but regardless, he did not play. And you had a backup quarterback playing for Georgia that looked like a backup quarterback. Had a couple fumbles in the game, looked a little squirrely throughout that game. Notre Dame was well coached. Notre Dame was well prepared and poised for this game. And I think a lot of that credit has to go to Marcus Freeman. I think Marcus Freeman is a really, really good head coach. You got to give credit where credit's due there. Since that Northern Illinois loss in September, Marcus Freeman has had Notre Dame playing some outstanding football. And I think Notre Dame has just as good a chance to win the national title as any of these other teams, if not better. So both these games I do think will be really good games. I think Penn State, I believe, opens as a 1.5 point dog, and I'm sure Ohio State is favored in their game against Texas. Looks like it's up to Ohio State by 6, so that's a pretty heavy spread, but Ohio State has earned it in their last couple games. They've just absolutely destroyed Tennessee and Oregon. So a couple good college football games coming up. Ohio State, Texas is on the 10th, which is next Friday, a week from today, and Penn State, Notre Dame is on the 9th, so a little less than a week away. So those teams have some obviously some prep to do, but I would say the first year of the college football playoff, it's garnered a lot of interest. It's garnered a lot of I can't say that the games have been that good, but despite that, I think it's been a success, and I think you've got to give the 12 teams probably a couple more years, kind of see what the averages shake out to as far as how the buys matter and how how the seeding is going to how it's going to look, right? Because I think giving the conference champions the automatic buys, I think that's going to have to be looked at. But again, I think you have to go at least another year and check that and make sure that before you change that, it's the right thing to do. Because you switching back and forth and doing all these things is not gonna bode well for college football. It'll make them look woefully ill-prepared. So that's really all I've got to say as far as the college football playoff goes. The bowl games in college, I mean, let's just be honest. Bowl games don't really matter. I mean, the guys are opting out. The only drama in any of these bowl games has been the Pop-Tarts Bowl when the strawberry Pop-Tart came back from the dead. Pretty awesome what the Pop-Tarts Bowl is doing, creating a pretty awesome, storyline and plot. I'm into it, but I mean, hell, even the players don't give two rips about the actual games. They're opting out and they're quitting at halftime, and the bowl games it's kind of an excuse for the fans of the team that have money to travel to Florida to watch them play. Cool. I do want to get in, before we get into NFL Week 18, I do kind of want to get into a little bit of college basketball. Conference play is getting rolling. Sorry, I'm looking at my monitor here. I've got a few games going on, but excited for Big Ten play to get rolling. Obviously, a Purdue guy, and Purdue has been one of the top teams in college basketball over the past several years, closing in on a decade now. And they're probably the favorite to win the Big Ten again this season in what is kind of a down year for the Big Ten. I don't see any teams that are just like head and shoulders, great, and that are anticipated to, be in a Final Four or in make a deep tournament run. I'm sure one of them will. I'm sure at least a couple of them will get to Sweet 16, Elite 8. But who those are, your guess is as good as mine at this point. I saw Wisconsin hung 116 points on Iowa tonight, which is, if you are a college basketball fan, Wisconsin doesn't hang. They rarely hang 80 points on any team. They're a slow, methodical basketball team that does not like to score the basketball. They don't want to move the basketball. They want to run the entire shot clock out and then find a good, solid shot, a nice jumper, easy layup, and run back on defense and play the entire shot clock on defense and then do that again. So, they're usually in like the 60s, maybe the 70s if they're playing like an up-tempo team that likes to get out and run it. So this is a shocking result. Wisconsin won 116 to 85. So they won by 31 points, and the loser had 85 points, which is just insane. John Tonji is kind of the new guy in Madison. At least in the non-con he was. He only had 12 points tonight. John Blackwell was the leading scorer in the game with 32, which is, again, for Wisconsin is just unheard of. So, yeah, Big Ten basketball is going to be interesting this year. You have some of the usual suspects up at the top, your Purdue's, your Michigan States. Indiana has, the last several seasons with Mike Woodson has always had a bright prediction, a optimistic offseason, and hey, let's see what Indiana does this year. They've got some talent. They pulled some guys in from the portal. I've touched on them a couple times. Indiana is just 5 dudes on the court that are all really good at basketball that don't play together. And in college, Mike Woodson is an NBA coach. That's who Mike Woodson is. That's where his experience is. And it's painfully obvious when you're watching Indiana play basketball. He went out to the transfer portal and got some really good guys in from the transfer portal. But, ultimately, when you've got 5 single guys out there, you're not playing as a team, and you're not going to beat teams that are playing as a team. These guys do not have experience playing together. They do not have the anticipation and the ability to know where each other is going to be on the floor. If you watch, again, I don't mean to come off as biased, but it's just true, so I'm just going to say it. If you watch Purdue play basketball, like even last night against Minnesota, not a great first half, but Braden Smith, the point guard, if you watch him play and you watch him, dribble around the 3-point line looking for, where to start his playoff and where to go with the basketball, he doesn't even have to look, and he knows where Fletcher Lawyer is going to be. He knows where Trey Kaufman-Renn is going to be. Now, you've got a couple other freshmen on Purdue's team this season that have not had the experience with Braden that Lawyer and other players have, but that's going to come, and that's something that's coached. And you have to be able to not only move without the basketball, but you have to be in the correct spot without the basketball so that the guy with the basketball knows where to find you. And I'm telling you, watching Indiana, they don't have that. They just it's like playing 5-on-5 at the gym or something. You're finding 5 guys who, like, hey man, that guy looks like a baller. He's 6'7", he's got a stocky build. Let's bring him on. Come on out here, man. And these guys have not played together, and they're not even like coached very well. So it's a bad combination. Indiana's got to move on from Woodson. That's just what it is. That they won't be. They're not going to be in the top tier in the Big Ten with Mike Woodson as a head coach. Sorry. Oregon got the brakes beat off of them last night at home by Illinois. Oregon had a really, really good start to the season. They beat Alabama. They beat Texas A&M. Oregon kind of was starting to surprise some people because they were not even ranked in the beginning of the season. And, they had a pretty nice non-conference run, and all of a sudden have kind of fallen off the wagon. And, they were a top 10 team, but they lost by 36 points last night. Something crazy at home. And Illinois flew across the country to play them. Like, usually when you are an away team that's traveling like 2,000 plus miles, not great in college basketball because you're also playing at like 10 p.m. your time. A lot of things are different when you have these conferences now that are spread across the country. It's ridiculous. But yeah, Oregon lost last night 109-77. So that's 32 points. So that's a beatdown. And I mean, Illinois is good. Illinois is the 22nd ranked team in the country, but they're not beat a top 10 team by 32 points on the road good. So I think there's some parity in the Big Ten this year, and I'm not sure who's going to end up at the top because Purdue is not what they normally are. I mean, they're having a down year, and some of your other suspects that are typically up top in the Big Ten, Wisconsin, they've started off conference play 1-2, and Ohio State they are they should be good, but they've been kind of middle of the pack the last few years. But Michigan State's up there. Michigan State's 2-0, and they're currently playing right now at Ohio State. And that's a tight game, so we'll see who comes out on top in that one. But, college basketball is getting underway. Conference play where you really, start to figure out which teams are going to separate themselves. So looking forward to that. I think I am headed out to Eugene, Oregon to watch Purdue at Oregon in a couple weeks. They play at Oregon on the 18th of January. So I will be out in Eugene for that one, and I think I may try to do a little podcast from Eugene, whether that's somewhere on campus or we might try to get some video of a campus tour or something cool. But yeah, I typically try to go to an away game every season for Purdue. So this year we're headed out to Eugene, so that'll be a cool one. But yeah, we'll continue to revisit college ball. The only other thing I'll say about college basketball is Auburn's going to win the championship. Hot take, but not really. Auburn has been by head, shoulders, upper arms, and most of its torso the best team in college basketball all season. Jani Broom, if he can stay healthy, if that shoulder can stay intact, there's nobody that even has a shot. Sorry. I know most people like to have a little bit more drama than that, but yeah, Auburn's just too good. So just kind of playing for success this season is going to be making the Sweet 16, making the Elite Eight. Anything above that is gravy. Let's jump into NFL Week 18. Like I said at the top of the show, I think there's not a lot of intrigue in this week. Half of these matchups mean nothing, but we can go through them and kind of talk about the ones that might mean something for some of these teams. I mean, some of these teams do have a little bit to play for. The Saturday games actually do mean something for 3 of the 4 teams. Tomorrow we've got 2 games. We've got an afternoon and an evening game. The first game of the day tomorrow is a absolute stinker. Cleveland at Baltimore. The line for this one is all the way up to Baltimore by 20, which in the NFL, a 20-point line is unheard of. I couldn't tell. I mean, let's see if I can even find the last time there was a 20-point line. I don't know if that's, let's see, 20-point spreads in NFL history. Let's just see what Google decides to tell me about that, because that's a college line. Cleveland has absolutely nothing to play for. And Baltimore is playing for their division. They need to win the division. If they lose, Pittsburgh has a chance to win the division and take the 3 seed, which would bump Baltimore to a wild card spot, and they would lose their home field advantage for the playoffs. So Baltimore needs to win, but it doesn't matter how. Largest spread in Ravens history, and the biggest in the NFL since only 2021. Okay. All right, well, I stand corrected. The Arizona Cardinals were 20-point favorites to beat the Houston Texans in 2021, and they did win 31-5. But yeah, you don't see 20-point spreads in the NFL hardly ever. So that game's going to be a total stinker. Yeah, sorry. If you want to watch that one, tune in, I guess, if you're a NFL diehard. If not, wait till the evening game at 8:00. That one actually is going to be a good one. Bengals and Steelers. Both these teams have something to play for. As I mentioned, if the Ravens lose, the Steelers need to win the division, which would bump them up to a 3 seed and give them home field advantage in the playoffs, at least in the first game. And Cincinnati must win to keep their playoff hopes alive. They have been on the fringe of getting eliminated since like week 12, and somehow they keep skating by the skin of their teeth. And now here we are in the last week of the season, and they actually have a chance to make the playoffs, which is awesome. So Joe Burrow is the only reason they have a chance to make the playoffs, I think. Cincinnati's not a good football team. Their defense is actually atrocious, but Joe Burrow has kept them in and winning mini games this season, and they're still only, I don't know, what are they, like 8-9, I think, 8-8. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that game. There's not a lot of else I can really say about that one. I mean, the spread there is up to Bengals 2.5. I like the Bengals to win that one. But even if the Bengals win, they are still depending on the Broncos to lose, because if the Broncos end up beating the Chiefs, Broncos are in the playoffs. So the Bengals do need a little bit of help. They need a couple things to happen, but the first thing they need to happen is they need to win tomorrow. So make sure to tune in for that one. Don't miss the late game tomorrow. Sunday, again, a lot of stinkers. I do think Carolina at Atlanta. I do think Atlanta still has a shot at the division, maybe. So Atlanta would be playing for something. I think I might be wrong on that. Let me double check the standings here. But that game is not going to be a fun one to watch. Even if Atlanta does happen to make the playoffs, they're not going anywhere. They're starting a rookie quarterback who's been fine, but I mean, they're as the division winner, they would be a 4 seed playing a 5 seed. They'd be playing the best wild card team, which is either going to be the Lions or the Vikings, and the Lions or the Vikings would absolutely destroy them. Yeah, so Atlanta needs to win, and they would need Tampa to lose, and that would give them the division. So Atlanta is still playing for something, but obviously they need a couple things to go their way. Tampa is playing New Orleans, and New Orleans is not a good football team. So Tampa should easily win the game. That'll basically just be a formality. So in all reality, Carolina at Atlanta is meaningless. Washington at Dallas is just a seeding game. The Cowboys have been eliminated from the playoffs for the last couple weeks. Washington clinched a playoff berth. They're in. Now it's just a matter of what seed they fall. So if you're a Commanders fan, I guess check that out. Chicago at Green Bay. Again, Chicago's been eliminated for some time. Green Bay is in the playoffs already. It's just a matter of where they fall on the seed line. They are really vying with Washington for the 6th seed. So I believe if Washington wins, they have the 6th seed. If Washington loses to Dallas, they would need Green Bay to lose to stay in the 6th spot. If Washington loses and Green Bay wins, Green Bay would slide up to the 6th seed, likely playing the Rams. The 6th seed would likely play the Rams in LA, and the 7th seed would likely play Philadelphia in Philadelphia. If you do not follow football, you would rather play the Rams than the Eagles. The Eagles are a much better football team than the Rams. So that matters for Green Bay fans, and Chicago. I don't see Chicago having a chance in that one. So I did pick these games. So let me actually go back and give you who I think is going to win these. I'm taking the Browns to cover 20 points against Baltimore. The Browns suck so bad, but 20 points is so much. I'm taking the Bengals to win outright and cover. Carolina, Atlanta. That spread is 7.5 points to Atlanta. I'm taking the, who did I highlight? I do want the Falcons. Panthers are just, I don't know, man. I don't like taking them because they're not great, but they've gotten a lot better over the course of the season. Atlanta just has something to play for, and Carolina doesn't. Washington at Dallas. Washington already lost to Dallas this season. I like them to keep that in the front of their minds and cover the 6-point spread. And Green Bay is favored by 10 against the Bears. Give me Green Bay by more than 10. By a lot. Next game we're looking at is Houston at Tennessee. I think literally meaningless. Houston's already wrapped up the AFC South. Tennessee sucks. Neither of these teams is playing for anything. So don't tune into that one. Jacksonville and Indianapolis, again, another meaningless game. The Colts blew it. The Colts need to fire everybody into the sun. Chris Ballard has never been good, and it's time. His clock expired 2 or 3 years ago. He's got to be fired. You got to move on from that guy. Steichen, I don't think he's the coach, but I guess he's only had a couple years, so maybe give him another year. But Anthony Richardson's not the guy. He's a hell of an athlete, but he's not a franchise quarterback. Jacksonville, terrible. They don't matter. Both these teams are eliminated from the playoffs. You can go to this game for those of you in Indianapolis. You can go to this game and get in the stadium for as little as $7. Less than a McDonald's value meal. That is right, folks. So if you feel like going to heading on down to Lucas Oil Stadium in the middle of a blizzard on Sunday, go for it. $7 will get you in the door. Pretty neat. I'm taking the Jaguars. Jaguars are, I did write this down. Jaguars are 4-1 in their last 5 against the Colts and 8-4 in their last 12. And Jacksonville sucks. Terrible for a long time. So yeah, sorry Colts fans. Sorry me. Buffalo at New England. Again, doesn't matter. I think the seeds are even locked in, so I don't think Buffalo has any care in the world about this game. New England, again, just wants a good draft pick, so they would be smart to lose this game. But again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, in the NFL, you can't go into a game playing to lose it. You'll get killed. So, yeah, both these teams are going to be playing to win. Even if you play your backups, those backups are trying to put good film on the reel. So, again, they're going to be out there trying to win the game. Whoever you put out there is going to be out there trying to win the game. They'll be entertaining games to watch. It's not like the NBA here. The NBA is a joke. Don't get me started. But even though these games are meaningless, it'll still be decent football unless you really care about watching the stars, in which case they're not going to be out there. Give me Buffalo -3. Giants and Eagles, another meaningless game for both teams. Again, seeding, I believe, is locked in. Eagles, 2.5. Saints and Buccaneers. I touched on this a little bit ago. If Tampa wins, they win the division. Good for them. And there is a pretty awesome contract incentive in this game to watch out for. Mike Evans needs 5 catches and 85 yards to hit 1,000 yards this season, which would be, I believe, his 11th or 12th straight year. Every year he's been in the league, he's hit 1,000 yards. And I believe he would get I want to say $1 million bonus if he gets 5 catches and 85 yards. So that'll probably happen. I mean, guys like to be able to get their guys' incentives, and the guys who are close, that's a cool thing to watch out for. If you want to bet those things, they're pretty easy to find on Twitter. That's what I'm doing this weekend. I'm just betting the incentives to happen, and we'll see how it goes. But those guys want the money, and so I'm going to try to make some money on them wanting money. Cool. Tampa Bay -14. Yeah, the Saints suck. Give me Tampa. Tampa's looked really good. I do not want to run into Tampa Bay in the playoffs. In fact, I may bet them to go deep in the playoffs. I may bet them to win the NFC and make the Super Bowl. I don't know. They're playing really good football. Kansas City at Denver, another meaningless game, especially for Kansas City. Not so meaningless for Denver. Denver does have to win this one to get in the playoffs. They would be the 7 seed playing the 2 seed, which is likely I believe it's the Bills. I believe it's already locked in. So win this game and you get yourself a trip to Buffalo in the middle of January. That's pretty cool, huh? That sucks, dude. Buffalo's going to destroy whoever comes into Buffalo. The most entertaining game would be if somehow Cincinnati can sneak into that 7 seed. That would be an entertaining game in Buffalo. That's what I'd like to see. Denver's going to be boring. Sorry, Broncos fans. That's just meh. I mean, whatever. I actually don't know if Carson Wentz is playing. I've actually heard that they may actually start their 3rd string quarterback. Kansas City. They're 10.5 point underdogs, but they're so well coached that they may just go out and win the game anyway. Let me see the latest on Wentz, because that was earlier in the week. He might play. Okay, yeah, 2 days ago they did say they're going to start Carson Wentz, so he is going to play. I actually think they might. I mean, Carson Wentz is a good quarterback. He was like leading the MVP race when he played for the Eagles. 5 years ago now? The dude can ball, and he's got again, Andy Reid's the best coach in the NFL by a lot. So Andy's going to put him in a position to win. I like the Chiefs to cover the 10.5, to be honest. They may not win, but I kind of like Kansas City to like spoil the Broncos and make it interesting. Yeah, the other thing I will mention is that if Denver loses and the Bengals lose, then the Dolphins make the playoffs, which would be wild. Nobody wants to see that. That might even be worse than Denver. Sorry. The Chargers and Raiders, I believe another meaningless game. Chargers have made the playoffs already. I don't think that their playoff spot is even in jeopardy, or playoff seed is even in jeopardy at this point. Let me think about this. They're probably locked into a 6. They're flirting with the Steelers. Steelers and Chargers are 5-6. Unless the Steelers happen to win the division, then it'll be the Ravens. But the AFC North winner and the Chargers are going to be kind of fighting for that wild card spot. But as far as the Chargers and the Raiders care, they don't. Neither one cares about this game. This game doesn't matter. So Chargers -4. Give me the Chargers. Seattle and the Rams. This game I don't think matters either. Sucks to say it, but I don't think it does. Rams, I believe, have locked up the division. Seattle, I think, is eliminated from the playoffs. Let me confirm that before I go any farther. Yep. Seattle's eliminated. So this game does not matter. Seattle's favored by 6.5. They're at home, I think. Let me double check that too before I. No, it's at Los Angeles, and the Seattle Seahawks are favored by 6.5. I guess the Rams don't care. So give me Seattle -6.5. Miami and the Jets, like I just mentioned, Miami can't beat a team that's good. So seeing them in the playoffs would be a shame because Miami's good against teams that are bad. Under 500, they're like really good. They're like 20. A couple weeks ago they were like 23-4 against teams under 500 with Mike McDaniel as their head coach. Any team above 500, I think they were 1-16. So it's a pretty staunch difference there for the Dolphins. The Jets are terrible, so they've got that going for them. So they'll probably win this one. Give me Miami -1. But like I said, they need both Denver and the Bengals to lose to make the playoffs for the right to head up to Buffalo in the middle of January. So, and if you think the Dolphins look bad against good teams in normal weather conditions, wait till you send them up to Buffalo and it's like -20. That'd be kind of funny. It'd be kind of funny. But yeah, I'll give you Miami to win, make it interesting. San Francisco at Arizona. Both these teams are eliminated. Doesn't matter. Arizona -4.5. Give me the Niners +4.5. Now, last game of the week, Sunday night, Minnesota and Detroit. Get your popcorn ready for this one because this is going to be a heck of a game. This is for the division. This is for the 1 seed in the NFC. This is for a bye. So this is basically a playoff game, not in the playoffs. So bonus playoff football. Can't ask for much more than that. So Minnesota, I've said this throughout the course of this season, Minnesota is a shocking team this year. Nobody had them even close to going. They're currently 14-2, I think. So that's a absolute shocker. Detroit, we all did have going something close to this. They're also 14-2, but the winner of this game wins the division, gets the 1 seed, has a bye next week or the first week of the playoffs, and gets home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Whereas the loser of this game slides all the way down to the 5 seed in the wild card for the distinct pleasure of playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, likely, who I just mentioned are playing really good football right now. So, and they have to go to Tampa. So, not great. And if you want my opinion on this game, the Lions defense is just a complete duct-taped together unit right now. Everybody's hurt. These guys don't really play together. They don't really know each other that well. And they're going to give up a crap load of points. I'm hammering the over on this game. Ever since Detroit's defense had those 3 key injuries a couple weeks ago, who was that against? Let's go find out because why not? Where they lost like Aleem McNeil and then a couple corners. Might have been the Bills game. I think it was the Bills game. Maybe the Packers game, but right around there. I bet the over the last 2 weeks for the games that the Lions are playing, and it's cashed in like the middle of third quarter. So the over-under for this Vikings-Lions game is 55.5. Hammer the over. I mean, take a second mortgage out if you want. This is going to be a 40 this is going to be in the 40s, maybe the 50s. Both of these teams probably. Detroit's offense is still firing on all cylinders. All their dudes are healthy. except Montgomery, but they've got Gibbs. So no loss. Gibbs is much more dynamic than Montgomery. Montgomery's the bruiser. Gibbs is the guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield and make plays. You've got St. Brown still. You've got Jameson Williams still. You've got Sam Laporta still. And Goff is dealing. Goff's been playing pretty well. And then on the other side of the ball, you got Darnold, who's got all these weapons too. You got Aaron Jones, who's going to be a free agent at the end of this season, trying to prove, hey, Minnesota, I hope you want me back because I'd like to stay. Came out and said that this week. And Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, TJ Hawkinson. You've got a couple crazy offenses. The only thing I see potentially slowing this game down is Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator for the Vikings, and he's been really good this year. But I don't see how you slow down the Lions. Like Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, has just been drawing up stuff all season. That is like stuff you've never seen before. So it's been really fun to watch. These teams are going to score a crap load of points. Hammer the over. One of these teams is probably going over the over. So yeah, enjoy Week 18. A lot of games don't matter. Some of them do. And the ones that do are going to be really, really good. So pay attention to those. Last thing I'll touch on before we wrap this puppy up for the night is PGA Tour is back this week at the Century in Hawaii. Bummer for those guys. They have to fly out to Hawaii to play golf. Sucks. Must be terrible. Hideki Matsuyama has put together 265s to lead the field into the weekend. He is minus 16. But he's not that far ahead. He's got Colin Morikawa on his heels at 15 under, and then 4 guys at minus 14. So it's still a close tournament. You can still pay attention this weekend and still watch some really good golf. Looks like ESPN Plus and then NBC for the weekend coverage. Unfortunately, Scotty Scheffler had to withdraw from this tournament last week. He had to have emergency surgery on his hand after, I believe, he broke a wine glass and it went through his hand. And they're saying he's going to be back in like a couple weeks. Okay. That just sucks. I just hate that. So hopefully he makes a full and quick and speedy and easy recovery, because golf needs Scotty Scheffler bad. He's the best and he's awesome and he's a great dude. And you hate to see anything bad happen to him outside of golf or in golf, but outside of golf especially. The rest of the field, meh. One thing I will mention, just because I thought it was funny, gave me a little chuckle this week, was Justin Thomas came out and mentioned that he thinks he can easily have the same kind of season that Scotty Scheffler had last season. Like, okay, pal. He didn't say he would have it, but he's like, oh yeah, I could have that kind of season. Now, for those of you who didn't follow golf, let me tell you about Scotty Scheffler's 2024 season. His tour earnings, just in the events of the season, was $29,228,357. And that does not include the $25 million bonus he got for winning the FedEx Cup at the end of the year. And then he got an $8 million bonus for topping the Comcast Business Top 10, which is basically like the top 10 most influential golfers, like guys who have the most pull on social media or that, like, you know, got the most eyeballs on the sport. Yeah, they like reward them with big paydays. It's typically Tiger Woods and has been for the last several years, but I guess Scotty was the top. So another $8 million there. But yeah, the dude won, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 events this past season. And finished Let me say this. He played, I don't know, we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21. He played 21 events over the last calendar year. And he finished outside the top 20 players. 1, 2, twice. 2 times. So 19 times he finished inside the top 20. And it looks like 18 of those times he finished inside the top 10. Sorry, 17 of those times. So the dude had an unbelievable year. I mean, hard to even fathom. He won, I think he only won one major, the Masters. Yes, but he did win Olympic gold, which is cool. And he finished top 10 at the PGA, top 10 at the Open, and tied for 41st at the U.S. Open, which was his worst finish all year. But if I can refresh your memory, that was when he got arrested for nothing. So he had a little bit on his mind, and I'm going to give him a pass on that one. But Justin Thomas, like we all know Justin Thomas, right? He thinks he can have a year like Scottie Scheffler did last year. So let's just all take a minute to pour one out for our boy. And let me, just an update on the Century. The leaders are at -16. Justin Thomas is currently sitting at -4. So, yeah, it's going to take a pretty good weekend for him to even finish in the top 10. But old JT, boy, you hate to see it. I mean, you just hear stuff like that, and you're like, "What are you talking about, dude?" Like, nobody's ever gonna have a year like Scottie Scheffler just had. Like, we're talking Tiger Woods in 2000 levels of dominance. Like, maybe not in the majors, but I'm talking like just in general. Like Scottie Scheffler's 2024 season is probably enough to get him into the Hall of Fame if he never played on a golf tournament again. That's how good it was. Now, old JT, our boy here. I want to try to get a grip on how last year went. Poor, I can tell you that, but I don't remember him competing really at any major events. He just had a really, really rough 2024. Let's pull it up. Let's check it out. Here, why don't I do this? Y'all can follow along with me. So, I guess early in the year, not too bad. Tied 3rd, tied 6th, tied 12th, but then you starts to fall off here. So missed cut, tied 12th, missed cut. Now the Genesis and the Players are 2 pretty big events, so take that for what they are. Missed the cut at the Masters, the first major of the year. He was top 10 in the PGA at Valhalla, which I think is something of like a familiar course for him. So, okay, cool. But missed the cut at the U.S. Open and tied for 31st at the Open. So he missed 2 cuts in the majors, and the other 2 majors were meh. Okay. But look at how his year ended. I mean, he's like struggling to be in the top 30 in most of these events. So I'm sorry, but like the dude cannot have a year like Scottie Scheffler. I laughed when I heard it. I thought you might get a kick out of that if you follow golf. Okay. That's kind of what I wanted to cover. Before we leave, I do want to give you our
Now here's King of the Hill.
Our King of the Hill. This week, I already mentioned him in this episode, but I do want to give props where props are due. our king of the hill this week is Mr. Cam Skattebo from Arizona State. Absolutely balled out. Let's check out his line. Why don't we? His stat line from the playoff game. I just want to give him his roses because he definitely earned them. The guy was unbelievable against Texas. Had a outstanding game. Doing all kinds of awesome things, throwing the football, rushing the football, catching the football, being a distraction when he didn't receive the ball. Everybody thought he was going to get the ball. It was awesome stuff. It really was. So props to Skattebo. That dude just earned himself a massive paycheck in the league. I think he'll be a probably a second or third round draft pick would be my guess. But I mentioned it earlier. I really think he fills the Taysom Hill role very well, of like a guy who can do a little bit of everything. Could easily, take direct snaps, could easily catch the ball. He was a beast. 30 carries, 143 yards, 2 scores, 8 receptions for 99 yards. And then his passing stats obviously aren't on the sheet for running back, but he had a touchdown pass for 39 yards. So pretty awesome. Congratulations, Cam Skattebo. You are the king of the hill this week. Appreciate you all joining in this evening. Make sure to give me some follows wherever I'm at on. I've got the podcast being posted on Spotify, Gain the Lead. I've got a Twitter that I am trying to post on somewhat regularly. You can follow me on Twitter at RealGTL. I've got a YouTube channel, Gain the Lead. And we're also live on Twitch right now. You can find me on Twitch, Tyler Gain the Lead. So check me out on socials and share it if you don't mind. That would be a huge help. And we'll try to get back to a semi-regular schedule here in the new year. Hoping to be at least twice a week going into the new year here. Obviously, as football's dwindling to an end here in the next month and a half, we'll have to find something to fill our time with, which I think we'll be able to do. So I appreciate you joining me tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, and we will talk to you first of next week. Bye-bye now.